Welcome back, everyone. Well, it's time for our final panel discussion featuring some amazing speakers. In fact, even I've had the opportunity to listen to them across a gamut of topics around the entire supply chain ecosystem. And I'm sure we are mighty delighted to have them on board to share their thoughts around building back better as we talk about rethinking the supply chain ecosystem. On that note, as we are also about to introduce our speakers for all of you, let me inform you, we're going to also request you to please share your questions in the chat box so that our moderator and our speakers will be more than delighted to have them answered towards the end of the session. As we do that, as we talk about rethinking the supply chain, I think it's only befitting because it's a very pertinent topic considering the kind of change that we managed to establish, that we managed to witness, especially in the last 16 months. So let's try to gather these strategies from some of our stalwart speakers joining us, and none other than Mr. Jasjit Sethi, the Chief Executive Officer, TCI Supply Chain Solutions, to moderate this power-packed discussion with some power-packed panelists featuring Mr. Naveen, Ahlawat, Chief of Procurement, Jindal Steel and Power Limited, Mr. Sharad, Dhawale, General Manager Supply Chain, Raychem RPG Limited, Mr. Mohit, Agarwal, General Demand Distribution and Channel Management Manager with J&J Pharma, Janssen, India. We're also joined by Mr. Anirban Basu, Executive Director, Supply Chain, Dalmia, Bharat Cement Limited, Mr. Vivek Sarbhai, Senior Director, Supply Chain and EHS, India and Middle East with Thermofisher Scientific Limited, Mr. Kamal, Kathuria, General Manager, Supply Chain, Aditya, Birla Fashion and Retail Limited, and Miss Rucha Sankhe. We have with us Rucha Sankhe, who's the Head Manufacturing Supply Chain with L'Oreal, joining in. So as you can see, we've got a diverse set of speakers who are coming together in order to share their strategies with us. And I think this is one session that you're deeply looking forward to. So without any further delay, I'm going to hand over the proceedings to Mr. Jasjit Sethi. With that, sir, over to you.
Thank you very much. Very crisp and bright as always. Thanks for starting us on that good note and a good intro. So the challenge which we have in this session today is to talk about not only the pandemic, but about the future as well. So we've structured a session into three parts largely. One is in terms of the impact of the pandemic and the strategy which stem from that. And as we all know, digital has become a large part of that story. We'll talk about the role of digital also, how that is shaping up the strategy as well. And supply chain is a team game. You can't just play it alone. So you require an ecosystem around it. So we'll speak about the ecosystem as well. So three broad areas, the learnings from that and the strategies going forward, the role of digital, and the third part is the ecosystem. So we'll try to cover all these through a power-packed panel. And everybody here comes from diverse industries with more than 15 to 25 years of experience and have been on the job, like all supply chain guys, also the pandemic. So they have been rolling, they have not had a single day off, be it virtually or otherwise. So we get to hear things right from the horse's mouth. What I would request also is that for my co-panelists to please also introduce themselves in a few words so people know where all your work, what you bring to the table in brief, as you get about, taking this session forward. So if I may start with Mr. Anirban Basu to start off the innings as we discuss as role number one with A. And also you have been, having a different kind of a challenge that you had to have a lot of logistics to manage in this pandemic. You already had demand, you had things to move, and things were not so easy. So, a brief from you to start off in terms of how did you use this period and how did you use logistics supply chain as an enabler along with your reduction, please?
Thank you, Jasjit, for setting the context and with your thoughts on the current situation and also the perspective on the way forward. Well, I'm Anirban Basu, having 22 years of supply chain experience across FMCG, paints, major, and then the core industry. Presently, I work with the Dalmia Bharat Cement as one of the cement major as Executive Director Logistics. Well, you rightly said, I think it's a difficult time for the last 1.5 years, the way we have experienced, especially in a pandemic situations, we all of us, grapples with most of us, human and the economic crisis, and supply chain is something which is fills the music, and therefore I think, especially in the context of various, new normal guidelines, the SOPs, process, governance, unpredicted demand. And after the 2 months of the last year, there's a pent-up demand, and therefore supply chain was the first person to really go market and make sure the product is available. The restriction and also the containment zones across pan-India over the last 12 months, 15 months. As we speak, there are in Northeast, there are areas are into that containment and also on the restriction as well. And there are shortage on the manpower as well. To navigate those challenges, Jasjit, we made our 4 strategies, in terms of to being more resilient supply chain in our organizations. The first being, how to being resilient and agile supply chain into your value chain process. How to really realign your operations and supply chain into your business objective, right? And what we have done, we made a night operations, early working hours. We are given certain allowed timing in which you have to deliver the product. So we made a daily operation planning. It was no more a monthly or a weekly plan. It was more of a daily planning to make sure the product is delivered to the customer. The second element of the strategy was how do you execute well to your plan, right? So daily production plan, supply, collaboration with the stakeholders like internal and the external stakeholders to make sure that all of your plan aligned with your business objectives, especially on difficult times. The third element in terms of how do you really innovate yourself? How do you bring speed to the market, right? And we have done some kind of changes in the model because those days in the last 1.5 years, we have experienced lots of fleets challenges, transportation challenges in our market. So what we have done in some of our market, using dealers, the distributed fleets into our system and to make sure that how do you build the procurement to pay process being faster and robust, right? The fourth element in terms of the entire visibility of processes, right? From the plant, product, cement delivered to the customer point. So the end-to-end value chain was being delivered, right? So in the 4 element, we made our strategies to make sure that the customer get a superior experience during the difficult time as well. So in summary, I think the timely adoption of strategic interventions in line with your customer expectations has helped the business to grow a big time.
Anirban, if you give some numbers to us in terms of, what was the kind of revenue growth you had in this period, and, in terms of strategies, did you use different modes that would kind of give us a better perspective?
Right. So we made, as I said, in terms of we increased our rail share from around 25% to 35% because there are lots of restriction in terms of the fleets. So we were using the rail operations the most we were the first one to start it on the 18th of April with the rail operations across the pan-India. That's something that's really helped our business to get the product available in the first. That's number 1. Number 2, during these difficult times in the last year, we grew around 30%. When we started in the month of May, June, we were growing by about 35 odd percentage, right? So that's something has really helped. And the essential part in terms of how really bring your supply chain agile and how do you ensure that you bring speed to the market. And in the cement space, it's something which is important. Whichever product is seen in the market gets sold the first, right? Yeah.
Right. Now, thank you so much. Thanks, Anirban, and that's good context in terms of the domestic market. Let's move a little bit towards the international markets where we have a lot of excitement right now, not of the right variety of container shortages as well. And who, other than Naveen, tell us about it, both from your strategies and the challenges you're facing the last 1 year and even continued now, I think, because the global supply chains are still grappling with shortages of vessels and also containers. So Naveen, you bring with you a wide canvas. So if you could just explain to us how you have dealt with and how you are dealing with the things as of now.
Thanks, Jasjit. So yes, as Mr. Basu has rightly said, cement and steel, we go hand in hand. So the kind of challenges which they witnessed, I think we also witnessed almost the same challenges. But the bottom line is that, at the end of the day, the result which we got, I think we totally forgot all the challenges. So just for the profit after tax of FY 1920 versus 2021, we grew almost 25 times. We took these challenges head on. So we started sensing these issues of COVID in January last year, when we could see that there is a huge disruption happening in our inbound logistics, because most of our items we import from China. China, basically, they produce close to 55% of the global capacity, steel manufacturing capacity. So we are, fortunately or unfortunately, we are dependent on China. So we started, getting those senses because all the transshipment which we were doing via Singapore, via Colombo, they were scanning the ship, they were scanning the vessels, container, and there was a huge lag. There was so much of damage that happened at the ports. So we immediately came into the action. We started developing our local supply because we felt the only way where we can sort of mitigate this risk is only to develop the local supplier. Now, there were risks that yes, the quality may not be at par with the Chinese suppliers, or the price may go higher. But we did our cost benefit analysis. We calculated our cash velocity. That yes, the kind of inventory which we are we import the material from China versus buying it from locally, the numbers was very, very high. So that's why we started developing that, and that in fact helped us to navigate through the first quarter. So just for the audiences, I want to tell you that only in the steel, we were the only company in steel sector which posted 12% growth in Q1 last year. The rest of the biggest thing which we did as the management, the top management, is that we never allowed to reduce the throughput of the plant. We said that yes, we are become what may be. We are not going to stop, or we are not going to reduce the throughput. We'll keep on doing it, and on the supply chain part of it, we ensure that yes, we bring all the material. That was the first decision. The second decision was that the demand, on the demand side, the demand was subdued locally. There was not a big movement happening locally. So then, as Mr. Basu has said, we thought that yes, let's go export. So from plant to railway, the rakes, and from rakes to port. That was our model. And just in terms of numbers, we exported 10 lakh ton of steel, that is 1 million ton of steel in 100 days, which in a normal time we used to do in 1 year. So in 2.5 months, we exported close to 1 million ton. And the turnaround time of the rakes or vessels, it was like, within the rake, which used to take close to 4 days or 3 days to come to our plant, it used to come within half a day or 1 day. So it became so easy for us to increase our cycle time. So that really helped us, and I must commend the efforts of Government of India, the Indian Railways, which really came to the rescue and which really helped us to increase the turnaround time. So this was the biggest thing which really helped us and actually helped our company to really to turn around the company. And supply chain has a big role to play on this. The availability of the material, the availability of all the ferroalloys, all the refractories, fluxes, everywhere there was a disruption. But I think the hand holding with the supplier, and this is where the time where we see this thing, really the stakeholder management, the supplier relationship management came to the rescue. So whatever effort we did from 2018 till 2020 early, releasing their dues, suppliers due, and paying them on time. So that really helped us. Number one. Number two, we ensured that yes, we supported our supplier partner to manage their working capital. This was also one of the things which we did, because they were also battling, because they told us that, sir, in this tough time, most of the steel companies, they have reduced their throughput. You are the only one who are churning the wheels. So support us in the working capital. So that we supported them. That really helped us out. And the third point is basically, relying on your infrastructure, the internal infrastructure. So we ensured that yes, all the workers, all the laborers which used to come to our plant in shifts, we accommodated the entire staff within our company premises. We ensured that we bought all the COVID machines. We ensured that we do the rapid test of all those things. So these things really distributed food, taking care of them for all these, close to 50 to 60 odd days. So, brought new infrastructure, new hospital within a record time of 15 to 20 days, which can, accommodate close to 200 to 50 bed hospitals. So that these are the things which we, I think, as a company have really done, and we believe that these are the difficult times. But then yes, if you navigate through these times with a stakeholder relationship management, and I think you can really come forward. And I'm really feeling great that after this pandemic, after this COVID, the supply chain fraternity has really come to the forefront. Even now the CEO or the managing director of the company, they ask, okay, sir, tell me, sir, do you require any working capital? Do you need any payments? Do you know? Okay, please tell us. So I think it really give me a lot of satisfaction that the guys who were the backbenchers, they are now coming to the rescue. So it is really, a very satisfying moment for professionals like us. And it is also giving us more responsibility, taking the extreme ownership, where we can, how our efforts and how our disruption, the great thinking can really turn around the companies. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Naveen. I think you put a lot of points out there. I think one point which you put out there for the railways part is that if there was no passenger traffic, the whole country became dedicated freight corridor. And
Yes.
we saw magic in that. So that's the point of consideration, that we should have dedicated freight corridors all across the country. You didn't speak much about, in terms of the global part, which is the content shortage. You see, as you explained, for the global supply chains, it's like an elephant. You have a trunk, you see it coming, and you have a long tail as well. It doesn't go away very easily also. So probably what we see domestically, it's only one part of it. But for global logistics, there's, hubbing of what things are coming, the long tail as well. So maybe later on you could explain a little bit about the issues of global supply chain. In meanwhile, I'd like to, bring in Sharad now, and, I'll also ask him to introduce himself a little bit about what he has been doing. And also talk about while you have spoken, while Naveen and others have spoken about, how the supply chains have been behaving, talk something more about the core pillars of supply chain and how that builds resilience into supply chain. That would be helpful from you, from Sharad. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasjit, for this opportunity, and good evening, everyone. I hope I am audible. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think Naveen and Jasjit and we have thrown a very good insight. And what I feel as a supply chain professional, this is sort of unprecedented time in our lifetime. I have been in supply chain professional for 17 years. So I think just to introduce myself, I am General Manager Supply Chain in the Raychem market. The company is in the field of electric infrastructure building. Previously, I was working with the companies like Caterpillar and Timken. I started my career with Tata Steel. So I'm a mechanical engineer with MBA from IIM Bangalore. So I was telling all this here, it has been unprecedented time in our career that, every day we are getting a new shock. So when it started, early part of the pandemic, we thought, okay, it will happen. We are used to get some uncertainty in supply chain professional. But we thought it will come and go in 2-3 months time. So we were doing a little bit of inventory management, building some stock, little bit supplier risk mitigation, building and supporting suppliers in short term. But then I think we were all wrong. Mostly we were all wrong, and then it lasted, for a couple of months, and then we thought we'll come back on the track. But then second wave we were hit, and now we see the global crisis all over. So we know what is happening in China. There is energy crisis. What is happening in Europe, and again the people are lining up for a petrol. The silicon, just to give a perspective, silicon, I think we never bothered about it. What would be my silicon will have ever shortage. Now we are facing with a lot of shortage of the silicon. The price has increased 4 times, 5 times. So this is a lot of unprecedented time. And what we did from my company perspective in both the organization I worked. So early part, we were just trying to do a little bit of patchwork, but now we realize this is not going to be just a patchwork that you just do some supply change from here and there. So that is where we started building the levers. How can we transform our supply chain? How can we make it better and build a better back? So tomorrow, if such type of shock comes up, such type of crisis happens, what we can do? The first step, I think the most of my colleague and most of you would also doing, we are also focusing a lot of digitization. So it is not, in earlier digitization in supply chain was just a fancy term, and like what was sanitizer for us, earlier time, it was kept in the probably room, but we are not used now. We really started thinking on the digitization. So I myself has been working on a couple of projects where I can bring that visibility in my supply chain, in the logistics, in the sourcing side. So we are implementing a couple of projects. Second thing is the supply chain race. So again, these are the used to be, yes, this is important for us, but we never used to really work. We always had things to be urgent, things to be taken care, so important things were taking the back seat. Now we really start exercise to overall revamp and see where are my risks in the supply chain. Now we did a lot of exercise on what was I buying from China, can I do it in India, can I move something else? That is what the big exercise we did. Lot of supplies in the Europe, which we thought somebody also spoke about. We had we were not very sure, but now we started doing on big time. We were single thread for the couple of supply. We said it is not going to work, so we have started developing another supplier. Third thing, what we started building was on the agility. So, with the digitization and then visibility, I think a lot of things come. How can we build that agility in my supply chain in terms of overall production planning? Because we know that tomorrow I am having the material today, but I may not have this after next week. So we are trying to see how can we build that agility in my supply, my planning, and my dispatch, and then customer service side. So that is ongoing project. So we are working on that side. Third thing, what we are working on the diversification. So as I said, we were like very happy with probably one supplier sitting out in China giving us the material, passing on cost benefit. But now as we sit, it's not good enough. Even we were like relying on the one logistic partner, and now we see Jasjit can give a more light, but then logistics contracts are no more valid. So we started, what we can do, is it good to have one guy and consolidate everything in one place, or we have multiple guys and sort of diversify yourself? So these are some of the levers I think we started working, and at least on the digitization and then bringing the supply chain visibility, we started getting the good benefit. So I think that's all from my side. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Again, I think I hear a little bit more about the glass ceiling being breached, which I heard from Naveen also, and that brings a smile to everyone's face. Yeah. That has the glass ceiling been finally breached, and are we into the boardrooms yet or not? So we'll keep that for the end, actually. And meanwhile, may I get Vivek in? A long time, Vivek, good to see you. You seem to lose a lot of weight during the COVID. So that's a good sign as well.
Thanks.
So,
thanks, Jasjit.
Yeah. So Vivek, a little bit about yourself for the audience, and also again, I think carrying on both these parts, what Sharad just mentioned, one about the core pillars, and also about a bit of the digital side, at what you guys have been doing to ensure that the supply chains being built now are built better, and they are kind of with a rethought.
Okay, thanks for this opportunity, Jasjit and Harish, and good to be in this panel. Really inspiring stories so far. I work for now Thermofisher. I look after India and Middle East supply chain and EHS function. Thermofisher, just to give you a background, it's anything to do with science. Thermofisher is involved in that. So to simplify what we do, we are the largest supplier of RT-PCR kits in the world, including India. And we are in the manufacturing, we are enabling the manufacturing of even vaccines. So we faced in our business a typical K-shaped problem. So some of our divisions went to the roof and some of the divisions went to the floor. And I think two learnings from my side, which is, I think I'm sure all the panelists have the same, that importance of people and importance of cash was very, very important. Very, very clearly, the objective in the first phase of tackling the crisis. And I think in the second phase, when everybody is saying that supply chain has become very important, I think it's a realization in the business. And I'm just trying to quote somebody here that supply chain was responsible for market share. That kind of comment was never heard in any boardroom or any organization. The supply chain is responsible mainly for cost and customer service and inventory levels. But in the pandemic, it was actually responsible for the market share. So supply chains which continued resulted in higher market share. And there are great stories which the panelists have shared. And supply chains which were disrupted, they lost share. Those organizations lost share. And I think stemming from that realization is the importance of two capabilities which organizations need to have now. One is the digitalization capability, and the second one is people capability, because you can't attempt digital capability without attempting upskilling of the people capability as well. So we look at now supply chain in 5 pillars, out of which 3 pillars are what we call the action happens. So one pillar is what we call customer at heart, which is mainly about customer service. And we measure that pillar's performance through the customer service levels. The second pillar we call is plan to win, which is mainly about planning. But it's not just short-term planning. it's also about long-term planning. As I said in the beginning that we had a K-shaped problem. Now we have a different problem. So the business which were doing well has started to come down and the business which were disrupted have started to go up. So planning becomes very, very important, where the role of portfolio is assessed, the role of building blocks and demand, the capacities, and a lot of things are considered. And you also mentioned, Jasjit, that we are having supply chain disruption. So that becomes part of planning. The container shortages, the freight costs going up, all of that. So that's the planning pillar. And the third pillar is what we name as speed at scale logistics. So importance here is speed and the scale, because when you try to grow, you can be reckless at times. So how do you drive that speed? And therefore time is becoming the most important factor. So in my 29 years of working, I've never focused on cutting time in supply chain, because I operated mainly in FMCG business where there were many distributors which were supplying to the end customers. But today in a B2B environment where I'm sitting, the servicing of the customer order in the shortest possible time is super crucial. So we are looking at, in the speed at scale logistics pillar, how do we cut time across each and every activities we have in warehousing and logistics, etc. And then comes the role of the two enabling pillars, which are the digitalization. And what we call is, in digitalization is basically two-phase approach. The first approach is automate the routine. And the second phase is drive intelligence in the supply chain. So in automate the routine, what we do is we are looking at each and every possible task which can be given to automation, or we are using now RPAs. We are trying to do order managements through RPAs, direct integration with the customers. So all of that comes in that aspect. And you will be surprised that we never added headcount in the last 2 years. Our headcount actually is lower than what it was in 2018. And I think the biggest benefit of digitalization I've experienced is unlocking of the intellectual capacity in the organization. Because when you are trying to battle a crisis, you are always, the senior most member is also trying to chase an order or chase a truck. Whereas if you have automation in place, you will have transparency, you will have empowerment in a very systematic manner, and you will have therefore a lot of time to drive innovation and a new solution or a new approach. So I think that's the biggest benefit we are experiencing of trying to digitalize. And then we have plans to put AI ML based programs on logistics as well as planning, but we will attempt it while we build a talent pillar, which we call talent powerhouse, which is mainly centered around people's upskill. So this is the broad approach we have. Our organization has done exceptionally well. We are experiencing the best KPIs ever in the history of Thermofisher in India, across globe also. And I think we are in a great journey to further automate, digitalize, and upskill the people capability.
Thanks, Vivek. Excellent points. I don't think anyone can summarize them, so I'll let them be. I think you've got a lot of points out there for people to absorb and real life experiences. So thank you so much for that. And I would now request the only lady on the panel to take this forward, both in the digitalization and also in the ecosystem. Rusha brings with herself a lot of bad experience with various industries, now in L'Oreal. I think she probably can, give us more insights, taking forward from what you left off at, Vivek. Rusha, over to you, please.
Thanks, Jasjit. Just to check, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just taking forward from where Vivek left. So when we say about connected supply chain or digitalization, the first and foremost that comes in, that is required is again transparency throughout the ecosystem. And when I mean ecosystem, it includes our internal stakeholders as well as our external stakeholders. It can get extended to our suppliers, vendors, and their suppliers, because any disruption anywhere in the supply chain ends up to come and hit us. And that is where specifically from a manufacturing supply chain perspective, during this period, we focused on bringing our suppliers closer, trying to work along with them to ensure how we are transparent, to get inputs at the right time, have systematic reviews, digitalize the data that is available. How quickly can the demand sense data lead to an order generation, quickly transmitting it into a production at the supplier's end so that you can fulfill your orders. So this is actually the way forward that at L'Oreal we are looking at currently. And here, I think one important thing that comes into play is the digitalization or the change that we are experiencing was always in minds of people. Pandemic just ensured that what we could have done in 5 to 10 years, we have compacted into 1 to 2 years. And that just shows on the capabilities that we have, but we get so boggled out by other noises that we don't focus where strategically we should. And I think this also led to give us a chance to work closer to people, to rethink the strategies that we have, getting suppliers closer. So we went on from importing stuff to creating the same suppliers locally, having alternate suppliers so that you don't bank on just one supplier. You have alternates for your suppliers. You create alternates for yourself, for your capacities for manufacturing. So we focused a lot on BCP, business continuity processes, where we changed completely our artwork so that we can produce any SKU anywhere we want it, so that if there is issue in one part of the country, our other factories are unable to produce them. Obviously, it has its own challenges. You have inventories at different levels, but optimization is at the end of the day what we work with. And as it was mentioned earlier, from being lean on inventory, now inventory acts as a buffer. So the disruptions that we had, going from a 0 requirement to suddenly a 1,000% increase in the requirement, we can supply, because if you have some inventory in the value chain, it can be at your end, at your supplier's end, at your supplier's end. How quickly can that demand get mitigated, produced, and reach your end consumer? So somewhere along the line, with e-commerce coming in, from a B2C, there is a lot of expectation for a quick replenishment agility. But because of that, from the B2B perspective also, the same requirement is coming, because for example, for L'Oreal to supply an end consumer, L'Oreal supplier also has to be that agile so that he is better equipped to supply, and we can work along with it. So of course, you have a lot of inventories in the system, or you can have a delayed customization. You keep some things available, ensure you categorize all your SKUs at ABC classification. You then bifurcate them as per your RMPM. You further bifurcate them whether your RMPMs are locally available or they are globally available. The RMs required to produce them, whether they are locally or globally, because it can be available to you locally. But to produce that, if it is not available locally, then it is at the end of the day imported, right? So we did that mapping so that we know where our risks are, and then work on mitigating those risks in having alternatives. So for us at L'Oreal, 3-4 things that we mainly focus on, being on business continuity and simplicity and standardization. Having thousands of SKUs, and for them having like few thousands of RMPMs, you have a huge catalog. And you can't always have huge inventories on all SKUs. So you have to prioritize. You have to ensure what is important from a business perspective. So this is where supply chain also comes has a say in how the business should be driven. If there are certain issues in supply chains, for example, Jasjit, you were just continuously saying that containers are an issue. Yes, containers are an issue. You have so many products coming from outside in India, and also we exporting to other countries. When India was impacted, other countries, like for example, Australia, New Zealand, they were not impacted. And from them, we had a continuous requirement coming in. But because of container issues, that was something which we had a lot of difficulty in getting serviced, but we managed at the end of the day. But having the containers available at the right point and reporting at the right time is equally important. So here with our freight forwarders and all the ecosystem that we have, we've worked on with solutions so that you have transparencies where some shipment is stuck from suppliers and where is it in transit, how is it moving, what would be the lead times, is there a requirement to change your source of port if you see that there is a congestion, is there an alternate location available? So all of that. So it was sort of like having a control tower sort of a setup to ensure that you know where and what in the entire supply chain your stock is stuck. So that at the end of the day, you have an agile approach to your end consumer. And I think from a FMCG company, the end consumer is that equally important that we don't even want to lose out on even one. So from all that perspective, I think standardization, localization, multi-source, having a very frugal way of working, but along with an agility built upon business continuity is what I'll summarize it as.
That's very well put, actually. And you're quite right that the whole process of digitization got compressed from 5-10 years to 1 and 2 years. And it's been a large play of a lot of ecosystem as well. That's very well put, and I think you probably have seen both sides of it, from the source to the supply as well, finished products. I think no better person than Mohit now to take up on this part about the ecosystem, because supply chain being a team game, the ecosystem of suppliers. I think, like you have explained very well, Rucha. I think Mohit also had very good points when we discussed yesterday about the ecosystem being so important. So Mohit, if you can just start with a very brief introduction.
Sure. Sure, Jasjit. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I am Mohit Agarwal. I am part of the Janssen India supply chain team, leading demand distribution and channel management. Overall, I have 15 plus years of experience in manufacturing and planning domain across automotive, high-tech, and healthcare industry. I worked across almost all the country nationalities in Asia, as well as Europe, as well as in US in my previous role, being the regional planning lead for the cardiovascular portfolio of medical devices. So with that, let me come to and build on what Rucha has mentioned. And when I was listening to what Rucha said, what comes to every supply chain professional's mind is one concept, which is called as Bullwhip Effect. Everybody understands the importance of that. And why it is that? Because the variability in orders from retailers to manufacturers just keep increasing. And very, very interesting example, today everybody would have read in the newspaper about the semiconductor chip shortages. It has many other factors, but one also a factor is about inflated orders, because everybody is worried about supplies not gonna come on time. You would see your waiting time for cars, your electronic appliances just piling up. Why it is happening? The reason is there are causes to that. One of the causes is like when we have promotional sales or when we have volume and transportation discounts, do those communication get passed on to our partners? Was it really like, how do we create when we are working in a global supply chain? As everybody has highlighted, now India supply chain is not India supply chain. It's a global supply chain with very, very long lead times. And hence transparency plays an important causal factor in its efficiency. Now look at the impact, what it is driving. It leads to increased safety stocks, reduced service levels, and finally, the inefficient allocation of resources. Now, are there ways and strategies through which we can really make this system transparent? It's not easy because the way, if any one of us are working, we are working in a very fragmented supply chain. We have seen very good success stories wherein we are in a strategic partnerships. The transparency in case of strategic partnerships are very easy and manageable. Now, we were also assessing the scenario, how the system is shaping up. Now, people are talking about smart contracts. when we say smart contracts, it means that not only you improve the visibility, but at the same time, you attach a purpose to that visibility, which means increasing service levels from X level to X plus Y, and reducing lead time from Z to Z plus 1. Those are the factors which are supporting and coming into the smart contracts and creating that ecosystem of improved sharing in a structured manner. Additional areas, because if you really see the way we were working in manual operations. Now we have seen, like with strategic partnership, you see the value of VMI, what it brings. When some partner shares the data, he expects a better service level. That means those engagements are translating into a measurable purpose, meaning why we do sharing, because that will help me to improve on these matrices. So if we create that purpose, investments will also come in tools and technologies. There are many solutions readily available, which are cloud-based solutions that can help you to digitize, create those analytics of the value creation, as well as automate the process so that this transparency is not one-off. It's a recurrent drumbeat which follows every 4 weeks. Gone are the days wherein you can be random. You can share now and then you share 6 months. It creates no value. So how do you create that drumbeat using this digitization approach? Lastly, I would say a confidence building measure through this forum, like we all of us are discussing this important topic. Now think of it, the power when we build those confidence building measures between partners. Why? Because there is a very sensitive element about security of data. Now, these cloud-based solutions ensure that you get your data secured when you transmit the data, which gives that confidence of, yes, my data is secured when it is being transmitted to my partners. And lastly, I would like to also emphasize the importance of government policies. I will add an example from Korea, wherein government policies promote that every node of supply chain network has to scan a product, pharmaceutical product. Why? Because that will ensure that the data is uploaded on the government portal and counterfeits can immediately be identified at the first point when a duplicate barcode is identified. Now, these are the ecosystems which creates infrastructure, and then the industry comes on at par. So these infrastructure then drives those kind of data availability in an automated fashion, and which you could be easily be able to translate to your partners. But finally, if I sum it up, my whole summary, I would say smart contracts wherein a step forward by the partners in terms of taking that purpose driven decision, that giving the visibility to us as a partner would mean an improved in service level or reduce lead time. And then with this clear purpose, things become easier, as everybody would like to go on an improvement spree with this kind of a transparency in the system. So that's what I thought of sharing, Jasjit.
Thanks, Mohit. That's very well articulated, actually, and I think very clear to all of us. And a good example probably is automotive industry, where you have also worked in the past, where partnerships with suppliers are strategic in nature. They are not transactional. So it's a great example again. I think to bring up the first round, I would request now Kamal from the apparel industry. So apparel industry has been at the receiving end for a long time because people are not going to work, and we all had COVID periods. So Kamal is the only one who's remaining with the COVID period, I guess. So it's good that you bring up the tail on this discussion, and because apparel has been one of the most impacted, and a lot of things change in apparel, from formal wear to casual wear to lounge wear, and then again coming back to formal wear, plus from the brick and mortar to the omni-channel. So I think a lot of stories you have to tell us. So probably you have seen all parts of this pandemic. So Kamal, it's very fitting that you bring up the rear of this first round. Over to you, please.
Am I audible, Jesse?
Yeah.
Thanks, Jesse, and very good evening to everyone. Definitely, pandemic has hit everyone. No one has left untouched. And being part of fashion and apparel, we were the second most sector in terms of severity who got impacted, definitely after hotel and tourism. But actually, someone has given a very nice quote that crisis brings the opportunity. And trust me, this last crisis also, this continuing crisis of COVID also has brought a lot of opportunity for us to come out of our comfort zone with respect to our complacency. We have been hearing, we have been preaching about efficiency versus responsiveness. And COVID has taught us one lesson, that how to ensure that efficiency is not getting compromised. At the same time, responsiveness is required because the demands were very uncertain at that time. At the same time, actually, that time the requirements were completely changed for us as a part of the fashion and apparel business. As a part of mature and as a part of responsible player, we discussed with the government of India the moment lockdown got declared. Can we open our facility to help government in their COVID fighting measures with respect to, can we use our facilities of apparel to produce the PPE kits? Definitely, then we followed with the mask also. And within 1 week, we got a positive confirmation back from the government. On first week of April, all the manufacturing facilities were open. Only thing which we were not clear about also, from where to source the PPE kit material. How to bring it back to Bangalore, because we are having most of our manufacturing facilities located in Bangalore. How to bring down to Bangalore. So those were the challenges, and then actually made us to feel also that how critical are the relationships which we have built up over the years with our partners, with our suppliers, with our network. And within a matter of few days, we got the all kind of a context with respect to the raw materials. We got alignment with the transporters. We got all kind of a permits, all kind of a licenses which were required to make our facility to start working. At the same time, there was a requirement came also with respect to different kind of a requirement with our partners, e-commerce partners also. If your operation scale is lesser, can we have the sharing of resources when they have to work multiple hours, and when there was a labor challenges that time with respect to availability, to ensure that essential services are getting continued. So we have shared our resources with multiple partners, multiple key retail e-commerce partners. Those were the things were there. But yes, at the same time, coming back also, it has given us multiple challenges. And the beautiful challenge and the most critical challenge is just trust on your process. Whether you like or you don't like, you have to trust your process. If you don't like your process, rather than changing or rather than not following it, better just do the re-engineering. The concept of business process re-engineering actually has been learned or actually has been executed during this pandemic time. We have to come back, we have to do introversion, we have to just see it also, what are the strength we are having it with us. Being in a time when the demand was nothing, crude oil was going below zero, no one was asking for the fashion and apparel as their demand. Second, how to ensure that we are able to bring down our inventory and the norms, our working capital and the norms, how to ensure that our suppliers to whom we have committed our long lead time fabrics, we are ensuring that we are picking up from them. It's given us one more opportunity with respect to how to have the communication across the stakeholders, not only to manage your own industry, just to ensure that all the stakeholders are coming out of the panic. Even though we are into fashion and apparel, we are having the India's best brands in our stable. Still, most of our suppliers, some part of our suppliers are still from the unorganized sector. They don't have that kind of a strength with respect to cash flow and something. Being a part of the responsible organization, how we can take extra step to ensure those kind of things are being taken care of. Then definitely focus has been shifted with respect to technology. Being a part of apparel and fashion, when we are dealing with a lakhs of SKUs season after season, how to bring more agility towards it, considering the lead time and considering the number of SKUs, number of the product portfolio which we have to change it, because every shirt, every trouser requires a different kind of fabric. If you have to be with the fashion only, different kind of a supply chain network has to be built it up. To consider the number of SKUs which we required, also how to ensure that we are bringing agility in our platform. Even during this pandemic time also, we have taken a bold step not to plan for 2 times in a season to 4 times. And subsequently within 3 months, we have shifted to 12 months season. How to ensure that machines can do a work with respect to planning part, in terms of planning of the range, buying of the range, in terms of assortment, in terms of deployment, as well as driving the replenishment, plus bringing what kind of a concept we can take it up from the AI and ML, which has become very fancy during that time because of digitization, how to ensure some kind of a concept can be taken it up to ensure that inventory management, working capital and everything can be getting communicated across the stakeholders. Even though we were heavily focused on brick and mortar business, we have our own exclusive network of around 3,000 plus our stores. Almost we are present across all the major departmental stores. Plus we have 25,000 plus multi-brand outlets whom we are doing the relationship. we were having our own e-commerce channel, which we have developed across the last 2-3 years with respect to brand.com. How to ensure that we can leverage that upon, and then we can formulate further. So for e-commerce also, we have done a three pivot level, which we have planned for it. One is to go with the strength of existing e-commerce players, how to have the discussion with them, more and more continual discussion with them, how we can share our range with them. Second, focus on brand.com. Third, focus on omni-channel. Can be our 3,000 networks, company-owned stores, which we are having in our basket. Can it be a distribution network for us to ensure that load can come out? So definitely omni-channel, which has been concept for last 2-3 years, we could able to really execute it. Like with respect to inventory one as in concept. Our stores are not only managing now the stores, our direct customers, our stores are managing the customers from the e-commerce platform also, our own company platform also. Daily store is managing customer from Chennai. In terms of availability not there, so daily customer, how to ensure can be serviced by Chennai customer, and same for the e-commerce. That's all from my end. Definitely last crisis has given a lot of opportunity. From the time of no demand to the time when supplies have become the constraint. So we are not getting the material on time. I have been hearing from the co-panel that we are facing now challenge also when we are facing with respect to inflation in terms of supply terms. So definitely it's a time which we have to keep us having ourselves focus on our processes. That's all from my end. Thanks, Jasjit.
Thank you, Kamal. Thank you. That's very well articulated. So now we have heard from Naveen from Jindal, Vivek from Thermofisher, Rucha from L'Oreal, and Sharad from Raychem RPG, as well as Anirban from Dalmia Cement, Mohit from Janssen, and of course now from Kamal. So what are the key takeaways which we are getting from here? We're hearing a lot about the glass ceiling being broken, or at least being recognized in the boardrooms. So a lot of positives we have come out of this. The positivity, in fact, look at the overall topic which we're discussing. Rethinking is very much at the core of everybody's thought process. Rethinking has happened on supply chain. That is, a common theme. Also, it is becoming better because we have seen progress of many years happening now. So there's a lot of silver linings out there. At the end, I would like to kind of recap the silver linings and request everyone's quick comment in 30 seconds of silver linings. So what I have a silver lining, which I've noted out from you. One is the glass ceiling. Second is I heard about resilience versus cost optimization. That's more important to be resilient than only be cost optimized. Third, I heard a lot about, which I think maybe Vivek's point, is a digital for unlocking the enterprise intellectual property. That has come out as a very major part, not a repetitive task, have your people for right work. Also heard about the ecosystem and transparency. Also heard about people. Also heard about agile. These are what I heard from everyone in the room, and I'm sure there are more takeaways than this as well. But, getting back to you guys, just to, for your 30 seconds, in terms of the silver lining of this pandemic, we can clearly see the supply chain has had a benefit. They have been able to use this pandemic for a better future. And, let's forget the lingo about AI and ML. Basic digitalization, basic RPAs also are in place. We are far more agile than earlier. So what would be your take? I would go to each one and I'll go by in an order and ask you for your takeaway of the silver lining which you have out of this pandemic. So may I start with you, Naveen, first?
Yes, Jasjit, two takeaways. First is about the product development. I think there was a lot of emphasis when you get empty, when you got things in abundance, we just, just don't care about those things. But, when there is a paucity, scarcity of the material, even our backend customers, our guys who are working in plant, they also start thinking in the product development. Instead of X is not available, why can't I use Y? Even if the efficiency may take a hit of 5 to 10%, but still 90% I will be there. So
okay.
Development is the first thing. Second is about, I think Kamal briefly talked about it. There is, we are moving from competition to co-petition. So when I say co-petition, it means that, joining hands. creating that ecosystem. If we are in the eastern part of India, it is a landlocked place. Why can't we, instead of competition, why can't we create a common pool of spare parts? Why can't we make a common pool of fluxes, ferroalloys? So when they need it, I move the material. When I need it, they move the material. So I think these are the two biggest takeaways, which I feel has, has really given us to understand that, yes, these are also the things.
Thanks, Naveen. Over to you, Vivek, your points.
So to me, I think it's a permanent change in the field of supply chain. We were a backend function for predominantly, at least what I can remember in my last 2-3 decades. But I think it's now in the forefront. And I think the role of sales function in the company will diminish. The role of marketing, integration between marketing and supply chain will be much more stronger. Normally, supply chain never used to interact with marketing, at least in the execution domain, only to the extent of planning and portfolio management. But I think marketing and supply chain combination will be the new thrust, and therefore supply chain has to reinvent and transform itself, because there is one way of reaching our service levels to a B2B customer. But when it comes to consumer, especially in FMCG background, FMCG industry or a branded retail industry, it's a very different paradigm. Just case in point, you would have read that Nike has changed almost 40% of its sales to direct to consumer without using Amazon's or Walmart. I think that's the radical change which is coming. We can't avoid it. And I think it's a great change to be in. It's a great time to be in supply chain.
Permanent change. That's an interesting word. Thank you. Rucha?
So the silver lining, what I feel with all this changes that is coming through is sustainability. How we are better able to sustain in this world. So we are moving from imported to localization. So we are reducing carbon footprints. We are developing things locally. So that is something which I feel is a big silver lining. We are moving away from transportation. We are finding innovative ways and effective ways to work around supply chain. And I think that is the biggest silver lining this thing could have gotten in. Of course, there is the change in attitudes of the people is another one, which I think without that change in attitude, none of the improvements that we have seen would be possible. So sustainability and changing in attitude, I think, are the two main silver lining which I take out from this.
Thank you. Thank you, Rucha. Sharad, your keywords.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Naveen and Vivek and Rucha said. Very, very apt. But what I see, I think there was certain way we used to manage our supply chain, and then ERP came, a lot of automation came. Now I see our shift is toward the smarter supply chain. So it is no more that we will be working silos in the back seat, but smart. Like there is a traction happening in how can we bring that visibility, digitization, blockchain. So I see that is a good. Obviously, this is a good time for supply chain, but also we will be becoming more and more smarter, and that is really silver lining for me and my colleagues in supply chain. Yeah.
Anirban.
Okay, thanks, Jasjit. I think for me, we spoke about new normal, but I think for my understanding, it is a better normal. And I go by 5R philosophy. The first one is when rediscover the market, the customer, the new things, the way we work, to reimagine ourselves in terms of going beyond the limitations. We worked on various mode, different go-to-market distribution strategy. Third, in terms of reorient ourselves. How do you collaborate with your customer, engaging dealer assets, transport customer assets being for our transportation and logistics. The fourth one, retool ourselves, adapting to the new technology. Digital information is something which has been the key. And the fifth one is about reset ourselves, ready to course correct and being ready to change. The 5R for me.
Okay, great. That's a great formula. Thank you for sharing that. Kamal, your points.
So Jasjit, like I mentioned also, definitely what I see from my perspective is like one is nothing is permanent. So definitely with respect to the distribution network from the time of pre-GST era of decentralization to centralization, And now we started talking with respect to decentralization again. So definitely we have to think of our strength and processes to have this transition, decentralization, centralization, and coming back again into decentralization and ensuring trade-off between all. Second thing is definitely we need to invest a lot on our talent, our relationship with our stakeholders, internal or external, and easy and democratization of information flow across the stakeholders. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you. Thank you. Mohit, you have the last word.
I would say only one thing, that we supply chain professionals are in an amazing space because we have seen a pandemic once coming in 100 years. So we are in such a position that we can really understand the risk and opportunities now in supply chain. But it comes with a caution that we all have habits to go back to the previous ways. How we as supply chain professionals in our company sustain this and continue this habit to last longer. Otherwise, it will again fade with the time and we will back with the same old ways of working if this habit is not sustained. So with that, I send it back, Jasjit, for your final comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohit. I think we have got a lot of positivity in the room. Supply chain guys have been at the front. They have been one of the pre-COVID warriors after doctors and nurses. And you kept the country going. I think that result of that hard work is that today supply chain is recognized as a professional, and the energy which we see in the room definitely makes us feel that things have been reimagined and the future is far better. But like Mohit very well said, whatever gains we have had, we should not fritter it away. We should keep our positions and aim for that glass ceiling to be broken.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, friends. And that's all from here. Over to you, Kavya.
Just last word, maybe future is bright, but the present is little turbulent and uncertain.
Well, the last word actually also sums it up in a way, but thank you very much, Mr. Sethi, for absolutely in a dynamic yet a very endearing way that you've moderated the discussion. Just what we wanted to listen, just what we wanted to understand as well with regard to what's the way forward. And I'd also like to thank all our panelists for joining in, for sharing your relevant set of insights. And I think that is the best way to sum up a summit that is all about the manufacturing and supply chain. Looks like it is definitely a positive road ahead. So I'm going to thank you all once again for your time. Thank you very much for your valuable presence as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jasjit.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jasjit. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Call now.
That's right. So with that, it's time for us to sign off. In fact, it's time for all of us to sign off as well. We come to the end of the amazing edition of the Manufacturing Supply Chain Summit. I'm going to thank all our fabulous set of speakers. I'm going to thank all our attendees for joining us this evening. And we do hope that we get to meet you in person for our next edition. That's definitely a wish that we're looking forward to, so that we can have more conversations and ideate more. So looking forward to it in the next edition. Thank you very much again to all our speakers. Thank you, attendees. And with that, it's time for the awards evening. Stay tuned. We'll get it started in just a couple of minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.